Hey guys, how we doing? Good to be with you. Hey, I was just thinking about, and I was just talking to my wife Crystal about how, isn't it interesting how, at certain points in your life, you hit, rock bottom. I'm going to give you some examples in just a minute, but you hit rock bottom and, you sit there and you think, how did I get here? How did I get here? And I will never go back. I'll never, ever, ever will I go back there because no way, right? So think about that. Think about how that's what you kind of promise yourself, that I'll never let myself get like this ever again. But do you keep the commitment? Oftentimes you don't. Oftentimes over time, you forget eventually. It's just like a mother, that like Crystal had a natural birth. She gave birth naturally. And she thought, you know what? I will never do that again. That was so painful. Never again. But, they call it momnesia. And eventually moms forget how horrible, how brutal and horrible, that pain is. And eventually they forget, and then they want to have another child, just like Crystal did. Oftentimes that's the case. But just think about, can you think of a time where you told yourself, never again will I get like this, never? For me, one example was when I got to the point where I was drinking, oh my gosh, my caffeine consumption, it just kept climbing. And, with caffeine, it creeps up on you, is what happens. You don't realize you're drinking as much caffeine as you are. The effect starts to diminish. I need a drink. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So the effect starts to diminish, and you can't, you can't drink enough caffeine. You keep drinking more and more and more. And I would get to the point where I would be drinking 400 milligrams of caffeine per day. Now, to a lot of people, that's not a lot, but to me, I probably have a caffeine sensitivity. That was a lot of caffeine for me. And so then my health would deteriorate, and caffeine would start having an adverse effect on me. And so then I drink more because I needed energy. I drink more and more caffeine, but the effect was just kept on being diminished. And my health was declining. Okay. So then I say to myself, wait, how much caffeine am I drinking per day? I told myself I wouldn't drink more than 200 milligrams of caffeine per day. How much am I drinking? And then I track it and I realize, oh my gosh, I'm in that 400 range, 400 milligrams. And then I realized that now my adrenals are shot, and I'm going to have to go through a painful process of, staying off caffeine for 2 weeks and letting my adrenals recover. We're so hard on our bodies. But now I got to pay the price. And then I tell myself, never again will I ever do this to myself. It was so painful. It was so hard to recover from that. But then, I say, I will drink only 1 cup of coffee per day. Okay. 6 ounces of coffee per day. That's it. And then you run into a day that just sucks. And you're like that, you drink it and you're like, that just didn't do it. And I have to do something really important. And I have to show up. I have to be everything. And I'll just make another half cup. And then you do. And then you just love the way you feel on the cup and a half. So it's like the next day you're like, oh, I felt so good on that cup and a half. As human beings, we just rationalize everything. Always we do. And, I can think of other instances where I do this to myself. I can think of, so many instances where I did this to myself. And then guess what? Given time, no matter how great I felt when I recovered and I was doing well, given time, I would forget. It might take a year. It might take several years. It might take 10 years, but eventually I forget what it felt like to feel like shit and to be that low and hurting. And so All I'm trying to say is, think about that. How does that apply to you? You see, how does that apply to you? Not only do we not know how good we could feel, we don't know how good we could feel, but when we do feel good at all, we forget what it's like to feel bad. Guys, that bites us. That bit me so many times. I can think of stomach ulcers. I can think of nasal spray addiction. I got addicted to nasal sprays. So many different things. I could keep going. I hope you probably have yours you can connect with. And then you got to ask yourself, how am I going to remember how bad I felt? How am I going to remember how bad I felt? How am I going to be able to draw on that so that this doesn't happen again and again and again and again? I'm not saying that I know the answer to that. I wish I did, but it's just, I'm trying to expose that that's what we do. That's what we do. And we're human, you know? So we do it, we're human, and you know what? It's not a bad thing. Like, you probably feel like a bad person, or you feel low self-worth because you don't have that. You don't have that, like, stickability. You're not that consistent, you know, and you just beat yourself up. But what if it's just human? What if that's just human? The way it is. You can get with that. But how do we play it smart moving forward? And how do we remember how bad it got? I mean, it's interesting because I had a health crisis June of last year. I had a full-blown health crisis. And I'm already starting to forget what that even felt like. I mean, I'm glad I've got it on video, actually. So that's a great thing. Because I'm forgetting already what it felt like to be that low. And I have to remind myself, wait a minute. Because I feel so good every day now. I feel so amazing. I have to remind myself what it felt to feel so low. Otherwise, you know what happens? I know what's going to happen to me. I'm going to do it again. You know, it's okay. A little here, a little there, a little more coffee, a little bit more, you know, whatever, sweet potato. I don't know what my vices will be moving forward, but you get my idea here. You know, just make sure you pay attention. Just remember, you've done this before. You've started low before. But how are you going to change that moving forward now that you're aware that's what we do? I hope it helps, guys. Thanks so much.